Hi, and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host, Beach, Recreation Coordinator with Lewiston Parks and Recreation. And today we have city attorneys, the city prosecutor, Jamie Shropshier, and the assistant city attorney, Mary Shanahan. Hello, ladies. How are you this morning?
Good morning.
Good. You doing good?
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
So we're just going to dive right in. Jamie, can you talk a little background? Where you're from, how you got to the city, all that fun stuff.
Well, I'm a native Idahoan. I was born in Boise, raised in Nampa. Went to undergraduate in Portland, Oregon at Lewis and Clark. There, not to be confused with Lewis Clark. And I went to law school at Santa Clara University in Santa Clara. I came back to Idaho in 1987, was an attorney in McCall for about 7 years. Part of that was as the appointed prosecutor in Valley County. Worked for the city of McCall. Did some work for some other municipalities in the area, school districts. Got involved in representing governments at that time, and then came to Lewiston in 1993 to be deputy prosecutor, and then was the elected prosecutor here from 96 to 2001.
And then to the city.
And then I had a little bit of private practice for a couple of years, and then came to the city in 2004 as the assistant city attorney. Had Mary's job. Don Roberts was my boss, longtime city attorney, excellent boss, nice guy. And the city council was good enough to give me this position in November of last year. So I've been a city attorney for about a year, a couple of months.
Cool. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
A year later. And Mary, how about yourself? Where are you from? And give us a little background.
Okay. My name is Mary Shanahan, and I'm born and raised in Idaho as well. Born and raised in Caldwell, down by Boise, and I went to college a couple of years at the University of Hawaii on a swimming scholarship, and then finished up at Idaho. I got my law degree at the University of Idaho, and then I worked for a little bit down in Idaho Falls for Bonneville County. I was a deputy prosecutor down there. Then I worked with a law firm in Nampa for about a year doing some civil work, and that's when I got involved in some city work as well down there. And then I most recently was in Sandpoint. I did public defense up there for 3 years, and then I got a job down here. Just started in May of last year. Took the position as assistant city attorney, and I do the prosecution for the city.
Congratulations as
Thank
well.
you. Yeah.
A little bit late, but Jamie, can you talk about what your function or what the city attorney's function is? What's the office function?
Well, we're akin to having corporate counsel. The corporations hire in-house counsel. That's kind of what the city attorney's office does. We're a very small, kind of full-service law firm. We have one client, and that client's the city council. We do representation from tort claim defense to criminal prosecution. We're involved in construction law defense right now. We do employment law. We do land use law. So in that sense, it's like I said, we are kind of a small, all-purpose law firm for everything that the city does. Now, we do have insurance counsel that helps in some of the larger areas, but we generally, day-to-day, I'm involved in employment law, construction law, tort claim, representing the city council, doing analyzing issues such as open meetings, public records, that kind of thing. Now, most of my work is the civil work for the city. And so anything the city council needs, we respond to. We respond to requests from individual departments for legal services, reviewing contracts, agreements, looking at issues that might arise from either construction or, for instance, in parks, issues that involved you hiring people to do certain kinds of jobs or putting together programs for the city. We look at contracts for those kinds of things. So that's the majority of my job. The other half of the office, and it actually probably takes up more than half of the work time, is the city prosecution. And we prosecute all of the citations that are issued for misdemeanors and infractions by the City of Lewiston Police Department. We occasionally take over conflict cases for the county prosecutor if they have a conflict on a case. So we will, in that case, we may have felonies that we're working on. But our day-to-day city prosecution is the citations issued by the Lewiston Police Department.
And Mary, can you talk, specifically, not about cases or anything, but what you really do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I'm daily reading reports, police reports, getting ready for pretrials. We have kind of a set schedule. I do pretrial conferences every Tuesday, and that's where cases have been brought into the system, and we meet. People plead not guilty, and I'll meet with them, review the cases beforehand, review the reports, talk to any witnesses, and then we meet at a pretrial. And sometimes I'll meet with attorneys, sometimes with defendants who are pro se, don't have an attorney, and I'll meet with them in the courthouse, and we'll discuss the case and see if we can't resolve it. If we can't, we set it for a trial, and then I prepare for jury trials or court trials. We have jury trials every Thursdays, and 95% of cases usually get resolved prior to trial, but we do go to trial occasionally. I think the 4th day on my job here, I was in a jury trial. That was jump right in, in the deep end. But that's my day-to-day is reading reports, reviewing videos, talking with witnesses, talking with victims, and seeing if a case is something that needs to be proceeded on or not. Make those decisions. I talk with law enforcement. I interact with them quite frequently and discuss cases, and yeah.
So, to the layperson that isn't a part of that the system every day, how much of the TV thing is correct? You know what I mean?
Probably very little. Certainly, being able to stand right in front of a witness and talking to their face in a trial is never going to happen. It would not happen in Idaho, and most states would not allow that to happen. So, and you see that a lot in that. And that's a function of where they can put the camera, basically. Yeah. I guess probably Law and Order is more realistic than many of the shows on TV, but most of it is not very realistic. And it has to do with their time constraints. Our cases could take months. Some cases take years. Everything's compacted down into whatever their time period is. 30 minutes or an hour. Nobody, especially in Idaho, gets DNA results in an hour. That would never happen. In Idaho, you might get them in 6 months, maybe a little longer. So that puts cases out longer, but that's just a function of their format. But in terms of the challenges of a prosecutor, I think sometimes Law and Order has that down. There are lots of things that happen on TV that would be considered ethical violations, I think, for some prosecutors that just makes the story sound spicier, I suppose. So I think very little of it is really good. Unless, of course, you watch court TV, and then it's live.
Something that was brought up was the domestic violence prosecution. Can you elaborate more about what that is?
Sure. I'll just say that sometime in April or May of this year, we took over all of the domestic violence cases that are misdemeanor cases that are issued by Lewiston Police Department. Prior to that, well, I can tell you, when I was the county prosecutor, we took those cases over from the city because they didn't really have the resources to prosecute them. We had some grant money, federal grant money. We were able to hire some victim witness coordinators, or at that time one, allowed us to prosecute those cases where the city just didn't really have the resources to do that. The county lost those grants sometime in the last year or so. We agreed to take the cases back and prosecute them. Mary can tell you a little bit about the challenges of it. We're very proactive in most of the cases we do, but particularly in DUI cases and in domestic violence. So Mary does them day to day, and I'll let her talk about those challenges.
Yeah, I think domestic violence cases are my most challenging. They're most frustrating because, they're so personal. You've got, this is something that's behind closed doors most of the time. And majority of my cases, it's, like I said, behind closed doors, you only have 2 witnesses to what has occurred. And a lot of times you get a case filed, and then the victim in the case has a change of heart, wants to work with the individual, the spouse, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, and then they will sometimes put up a wall in working with me, because a lot of times I think the victim thinks as a prosecutor, I'm just out to punish and put this person in jail, when that's not the case. My focus on domestic violence cases is to get treatment to the offender and any counseling that the victim may need, marriage counseling if they need that. My focus is so I don't see these people again. Because a lot of times it's the stress of marriage, of life, of finances, and people just don't know how to handle those stresses properly. And that's really my focus for those is treatment. It's not, I mean, there is a function of punishment. You've got to hold them accountable, but the main focus, in my opinion, is treatment. And that's what I try to explain to victims and defendants is I just want to get you some help, get you on the right road so we don't see you again. And that's the biggest frustration is sometimes those walls are put up and a victim won't want to cooperate with you, changes stories, or just won't talk at all. And that's frustrating because, I just want to help.
Yeah, and I think that's often the misnomer is that as a prosecutor, you want to throw everybody in jail and they should all spend time there to think about it. But, I think the process of counseling, the process of talking about some issues is a lot more effective and important in somebody's life rather than just sitting time, in a cell.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it does help having my background in defense work as well because I've seen both sides. And I'm the type of person, I'm very open-minded. I'm willing to listen. We may not agree, but I'm not just there to put you away. I'm there to get you help. Which is good.
If we could talk about the process kind of court itself. I know a question that I have, and people have asked me, and I don't know, but why does things like sentencing seem to take, like a sentence hearing, take a lot longer from the arrest date, or why is there such a gap in between those two times?
It takes a while to get things through the court system, and that's a function of how many cases that you have, how many judges you have, how many attorneys are assigned. On any given Tuesday at pretrials, Mary could have 60 to 100 people that she has to talk to. They schedule 4 to 5 people every 15 minutes in pretrials. So you may have 2 or 3 minutes to talk to somebody, which may work just fine if what they want is, do they want to plead, or they just want some information, or they want time to get an attorney. But if you have a client who has no attorney who wants to plead to a DUI, it takes up 10 or 15 minutes to talk to them about what the consequences of that are, what the punishment is going to be, what they can expect, what the real life consequences for them are going to be in terms of driver's license, insurance, that kind of thing. So sometimes cases will get put off because people want time to think about them. Sometimes they want time to get an attorney. Sometimes the court calendar, I can tell you on Thursdays, which is jury trial day for misdemeanors, they schedule 14 jury trials. You can only do one. You can sometimes do one on Thursday and one on Friday. So if you have 5 cases that are set to go, there are 4 cases that are going to get continued, or 3. And that's just a function of how much time that we have to deal with those cases and what the resources are to deal with them. Now, as Mary said, 95% of those cases are going to settle, but on those odd days that you have 5 or 6 cases going to go, they'll get continued. The system tries to treat people fairly in that it wants to give them enough time to evaluate what goes on. And some people need those continuances to do that. Some people need continuances to, for instance, get their driver's license back, and so at the time that they come to sentencing, they're in a better position with the judge. And we usually allow that. We would rather have them have a driver's license and insurance than simply sit in jail for 2 days. Because when they get out of jail, they'll drive again with no driver's license and no insurance. So it's just a function of how much we have to do.
And sometimes, depending on more complicated cases of witnesses, locating witnesses, we have had issues sometimes with getting a hold of people, getting them subpoenaed. Then you've got, depending if you've got a drug DUI, you've got lab technicians that you've got to bring in, and so many different types of witnesses, and sometimes they're already subpoenaed for other cases. So that also can tie up some things when you've got witnesses unavailable and you've got to move things.
Yeah, that's good information, because that's the question. Like, that guy got arrested 6 months ago. Why is he just getting sent? Or that gal got arrested. Why are they just getting sentenced? So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we have 6 months to bring them to trial, and if they are adamant about being brought to trial in 6 months, the courts will enforce that.
Before we end the segment, I just want to say thank you, both of you, for hanging out and explaining your job function and what the office does, the city attorney's office does. So, a huge thank you to you guys. Appreciate taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. On behalf of everyone and our guests from the city attorney's office, we'll see you next time on City Beat.